where there are questions that are, what should the United Nations do? Or how will someone win this election? In that case, what you need to do with the answer is you need to find the balance between being both kind of generic and broad, but also specific. Because what you'll end up doing is after the answer, in your preview, which is part of your introduction, you're going to end up stating your main points. So if it's a question of what should or how will, you kind of want to give a one sentence or one line that summarizes what the main points are going to be. Now what you want to do all of this in is about a minute 20. A minute 25 is fine. Minute 30 you're getting too long. Minute 15 is okay as well, but anything shorter, you're shortchanging something along here, and you're going to be, you're flying through your speech and you're talking way too fast. Before we jump into the main parts of the speech outside of the intro, are there any questions? Yes?
What was the P for?
The P, oh, that's for preview, where you have your main points, you're just gonna state them. So you kind of give, at that point you're giving the audience a roadmap of where you're gonna go for your main arguments. This brings us to kind of a diverging point for speeches in Extemp. There are two ways to go about the speech. You can either do what's called 2x2 or 3x1, which technically nowadays is more 3x2 than anything else. At least the way that I've seen it the last few years. What this means is, we want to get a little mathematical. On this side of the multiplication signal is how many main arguments you're going to have, how many main points. And on this side is going to be, for each main point you have, how many subpoints you're going to have. So it's easier to show it this way. We have one main point, this will be the first one, and then if we're doing 2x2, you have two sub-arguments. So somebody throw out a question. Let's make it domestic. Domestic question. Anybody? No wrong question, no wrong answer.
That was a wrong question.
I didn't hear it.
Sorry, I was making fun of. I said, what's the difference between a pit bull and a hockey mouth? Did you see that?
Oh yeah.
What's a canine? What's a
Well, I was making fun of Palin's speech.
Yeah, what's the effect of McCain picking
What's the
Senator
effect?
Palin or Governor Palin as his running mate?
Okay, so we've got what effect? Alright. For the sake of time, I'm just going to throw something on here. It may not actually answer the question, because that's something that you actually want to keep in mind. The sub-point here, this argument that you have going on here, needs to be able to support your main point here. And this main point needs to be able to support the answer that you have. Basically, the logic needs to flow up from your sub-point to your main point to your answer. It's basically, think of it like a pyramid. If any of those pieces are missing, the speech isn't going to be successful. The speech isn't going to be good. So, what effect will Palin have? Somebody throw something out there. I won't say it's right or wrong. We'll just put it up there for the point of having it up there.
As in the answer?
Well, yeah, so somebody say an answer.
Shall destroy Republican chances of winning?
All right, we'll go with destroy. Total destruction.
Destruction.
Now we need a point for why.
The lack of experience.
We'll go lack of experience.
Leadership and mental. Leadership experience and mental experience.
Mental experience?
As in maturity level.
Oh,
Maturity level, yeah.
I think one of the things we want to do with our taglines is we want them to be argumentative. We want them to take a stand. So they need to be, position yourself one way or the other. They also need to be able to fit on a bumper sticker. So lack of experience. McCain, Palin, 08, lack of experience. That fits on a bumper sticker. Not the bumper sticker you want to have, but lack of experience. We can put for shorthand. This is going to be an election based on foreign policy.
Oh.
Something like that. Voters are concerned about foreign policy. And then you have a source that talks about only foreign policy claim is that Russia borders Alaska and the Aleutian Islands were controlled by the Axis powers in the 1940s. And that's their talking points. Like, I'm not mocking them, just playing it. And then that the other one, you know, basically compares the fact that the RNC, apparently Afghanistan doesn't exist anymore. So, those are going to be your sources. You can use two sources. It's usually better to have two sources. So you don't want to fly through what they say, but you want to very briefly explain what the gist of it is. So let's say we've got the New York Times here, and we've got the BBC here. All right, and then after that, what you're going to need is analysis. What does this all mean? Just tie it all back, tie it together, and then you talk about the impacts. Well, how is this focus of voters on foreign policy, but a lack of focus by, in addressing the vice president for the Republican, going to lead to her lack of experience not shining through? Maybe it's the fact that Joe Biden's been in Washington since she was 9, and that he has been on the Foreign Affairs Committee for the longest time. And he's negotiated with world leaders. Something like that will lead to the destruction part. I mean, we're not talking about arguments that actually make logical sense. We're just doing it to show you how it all fits together. That disclaimer appease everybody. All right. So the second part is your B argument would be something about maybe her legend. What has somebody got? I mean, all I keep falling back on the fact is that Wasilla is the meth capital of Alaska. So,
Lack of domestic experience.
so let's
Maybe
say,
that.
yeah, let's go with false sense of executive decision making. Obviously, you'd want to shorten that up, because the only way you put that on a bumper sticker is if you drove a Land Rover. Alright. I mean, what you'd want to talk about here is you need to prove it. So what you don't want to talk in generic, you need specific examples here. So if you want to talk about specifics about this, talk about the fact